And you guys have done this pretty much without any outside investment, right?
Oh yeah. I basically, to give you my story, we started out as a web design company I'm going to say 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I started SageCore, and over the period of that time, I created custom systems for businesses across the nation. And, there was only so many I could build.
Because it's you. You're one person.
Yeah. And that is the problem that everyone has is, how do you take a highly valuable programmer and keep them around, keep them interested, and
not have them die.
It's
because it takes a toll, right? Sitting all day and coding. I mean, you have physical ailments that have come from doing that.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. So that's impossible, right? I think the word is impossible, and the reason you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but from what I'm understanding, nobody wants to code anymore.
No, and they it's not feasible to just ask OpenAI, right? Yeah. I mean, sure, you can build like a cool snake game or something on ChatGPT, but that's not usable in the business or enterprise world, or as a small business, right? And so that's I think the long-term game. You have to have a core that's not AI, that you understand as the business owner, the business leader, and the people that work for you need to understand it too, but giving yourself that leg up to be able to work within the realm of AI. And so that's where we want to make it easy, where you can literally log in, create a CRM, launch an autonomous agent from that, and start
within
iterating.
Weeks, right?
I mean, maybe even days if you have the right
depending
idea.
on how simple the model is, right? So that leads to, and we're almost out of time, but we're going to finish this up real quick. So I'm understanding how this system can help improve business efficiency. But everybody knows that the number one key to a good business is customer service. How are you treating the people that use you and buy your products, right? Your services or products. So how can this system help improve customer service for those same businesses? Efficiency, less human cost, but without that human touch, how can we, supplement that?
Well, what you want to do is you want to design your systems to feel human, right? So when you're doing, let's call it process management, you want to be able to have delegation, task management, things that make it very easy for the customer, all participants of that process to know exactly what they're doing at what period of time. And we've made it just extremely easy. You've made a lot of processes, I know yourself, in the system where, you can basically think from a human perspective and emulate that in the system. So you can create any process you want, any data set you want, anything in the planet. And
complex logic.
And we're going to make sure that we treat your processes, everything about your process, your data, everything, just like a programming language. Where, we own the compiler, so to speak, but you own your
IP.
Your process data and implementation. And that's huge, because then you can actually go and say, well, look, yes, based on our IP, we have our autonomous agent or agents, which then drives value.
Like in Alcanza, when a person asks a question, my autonomous agent says, "Hi, I'm Leo, your personal immigration assistant." It becomes part of the knowledge base, right? Like this person now accepts that, and it takes on a personality, and we give it a personality, because we want the person to feel. We want to anthropomorphize, use the word again, because I want the person to feel like they're dealing with a human, not to be. I'm not trying to cheat anybody out or fake them out or manipulate them. But psychologically, we feel more comfortable dealing with people, right? That's why when you get an autonomous phone system and you're like, I pressed four times and I said customers are bad, and it said I will send you to Rob, and I don't, So I think those are big deals. But what are some of the key challenges that are facing to try to adopt these type of AI technologies, and how best to address those these obstacles? How best to address them?
Well, I think the obstacles right now, it's largely demand and knowledge, right? So even myself, it's taken me a lot of time and I love it. I love learning new things. especially complicated things. But a lot of times it takes years for people to understand the concepts and to be able to put these things together.
Yeah.
Now, even myself, without 100% knowledge of everything AI, there's always more to learn. I've been able to put together some very rich experiences that, even overnight, as we've seen, can change the game with the proper foundation, right? And so I think that the main challenge is something that we're addressing is how do you get your let's call it your brainchild. How do you get your business process and data and implementation into something that then can be taught to an autonomous agent? And then how do you run it from there? I think the big thing is finding people that can actually even just set these up, right? I mean, you could end up, paying someone to set up basically just a retrieval augmented generation, that hits ChatGPT and spend $100,000, right? Easily people are spending, way more than that
millions.
In their bigger teams. Yeah. And they don't know if it's going to pay off.
What did it cost to do the first llama? Wasn't it something like
it's millions?
Yeah. Wasn't it something like that?
Millions
$30 million.
Of dollars. Yeah. And then to run it is like, 1,000 times cheaper than that, probably more, 10,000 times cheaper. I mean, you can run it in a Google Cloud environment with GPUs, a couple $1,000, right, a month, and have a pretty good scenario.
Maybe even less. It depends on how big your corpus is, right? Because if you have a smaller corpus, you could probably run it for what was the GPU up there in NVIDIA was $200 per month.
If you have the person to set it up.
That's right.
So that's the problem is you have to end up paying the salary of that person. You're $250,000 in the hole for that year, and then they leave, and then you're then you have to transfer that data to someone else. So at that point, it's like I said, they don't know if it's going to pay off, right? So what I think it comes down to is lowering that complexity initially, but making it so that the payoff is worth it, right? And I think that Tetracore really does that. Let's get you in. Let's get your processes in. Let's do it in a way that's easy for you to collaborate with your whole environment, your whole business. But then add the AI element and do it in a way that's scalable. So we run the models on our platform. All of your data is already on our platform if you use Tetracore. So the risks of having data leaked is zero, right? The other thing that we do is we're working on a very sophisticated caching layer that will actually, let's call it, disconnect the live AI from the usage of the AI. Right?
So it's not an LLM anymore.
It's basically, let's call it a preconceived LLM, right? Predefined, right? Where, you have a certain process that's done over and over and over, and you basically know, okay, every step of the way, this is
which decreases computational costs, right?
Tremendous.
Because now you're not having to pull from that GPU every time, not the process, right?
At least not the GPUs, but then you raise your costs typically with databasing and stuff like that, and so
because of storage.
And being able to do it in a way that's computationally effective. I mean, we ended up ballooning our own costs a few versions ago, where we decided, okay, look, we need the ability to do recursive dependencies, right, and feed it back into the LLM, but without it costing us, $10,000 per instance.
Because that's what happened, right? Each dependency had to re-up itself every time you did anything. And if you have 3 million dependencies, well, that's a lot of computational power. So now all of a sudden you saw this spike in usage, and it's like you got penalized for that spike in usage.
And
but Kubernetes works great for that. So it can do it.
But you still have to put the cost toward it, right?
You still have to pay for it. So I guess I only have one last question, and then I'll open it up to anything that you want to respond, talk about. We've talked a little bit about the history of AI, right? Where it came from. We talked about chess and stuff like that, creating this. And of course, there's logic built into that, right? So that's what feels like an AI is really just a logic map, like TurboTax, right? There's nothing artificial intelligent about that. It's just literally if you answer yes or no, then it sends you to this thing. And so everyone has a branch, logic branches, right? So that's not logic branches necessarily. No. But as we've morphed and now where we are today and some of the obstacles that we see in the future, I guess my last question is, how for the future can AI-driven analytics be used to inform strategic business decisions and identify new market opportunities. Like, hey, I'm a immigration law firm and I want to expand. I want to use my AI to determine when, where, how, and who, right? How would that help?
Help in terms of the business?
I would say, that's what it seems like would be, because that's what you're looking at, right? People who employ 90% are small business owners. 90% of the population, 90% of the employees in the country are employed by small businesses. Well, how is a small business going to grow from a small business to a medium business?
Yeah.
How can AI help with that? Is there a way?
It can help by streamlining the cost to scale certain things, right? So, depending on your business, sometimes you do have to have people doing certain things,
right.
But a lot of times there's the glue between them, the processes that kick off different processes and different things, right? So what we like to do is think of our objects as the glue and think of the AI as the sugar on top, so to speak, right? Okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you use
I don't eat glue, but
yeah, right. True. But you utilize this sort of object-oriented system to cut your costs of just even your ERP, CRM, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So those things can get expensive, and you end up with lots and lots of systems, right? So what you want to do is consolidate your technology down to one
nucleus
thing, yeah. And then from there, you have the ability to train an autonomous agent to do some of the filling the gaps, right? But you have to have your stuff in an environment that's conducive to that. And right now, to my knowledge, we're the only ones that I can think of that are doing something like that,
including messaging, finance, process workflows, mappings.
Yeah, because it's basically
AI.
a whole ERP, but it's also then taking into account AI, right? And a lot of the time you end up with an ERP that has no knowledge of AI at all, right? But then you're stuck with it because it does all the custom things you need for your business. And that's the other approach is we've made it easy to just do all the customization. And then from there, we've got all the standardizations to make it easy to then expand the AI. So I think that to answer your question, cut costs, get it into a singular system, make sure that you're able to enunciate the process, the problem, right? So if you're a plumber and you need to have a
invoicing system,
or something that does wayfinding to get, make sure that you've got certain people on the best path when they're doing multiple jobs, right? To be able to put those together. Well, we've basically you could set a target for scheduling and whatnot, so that the routes for that day divided by the number of technicians in your army, so to speak, right? They can get delegated out on an autonomous level, right?
Well, in theory too, couldn't you? Because there's apps like people can get white labeled apps through the system.
Oh yeah.
Which means that in theory you could do it not just internally, but then it becomes an external tool where you're communicating with your customer, saying, hey, so-and-so, so they use the app, and for instance, it allows it to build out. So now you have an app that has a plumber and an electrician and a drywaller, and so then it allows that person to communicate and maybe even find.
It's a central hub, right?
Yeah, central hub, and the customer relations management software. So last I checked, small businesses use up to 20 SaaS.
Sometimes
all
up
the
to
time.
100 in the medium and large rate.
And each SaaS, let's say they cost anywhere from $4 to $100 a month, because depending on the functionality, you're going to be paying more or less. So you're talking about having anywhere between $400 and $1,600 spent, and not to
just
mention
on CRMs. And
that's
stuff.
right, SaaSes, which is software as a service for those listening, and it can become convoluted because you may be using a SaaS that does more than what you're using it for, but you already have a SaaS for whatever that thing does too.
And doing like an if this then that traditionally doesn't scale very well, right? I mean, it's a great kind of tool, to basically connect up all these different services. But at the end of the day, the more disparate things that are connected, the less and less good outcomes you're going to
get.
Right,
because the bridges break, right? Yeah. Because everything has to be connected by a bridge.
And they weren't designed to do that in the first place, right? They're just kind of patching them together.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Is there anything else that you want to mention with the last minute or two that we have so that you can kind of, is there anything else that you want to say?
Well, I'm very excited to launch both of our companies, right? Yeah. I really am looking forward to seeing how some of the AI looping that we're getting into will work out, where you've got an autonomous agent actually doing something in a loop for a period of time every day. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an offshoot of self-learning, mm-hmm. but more along the lines of self-optimization, right? So if you've got something that has recursive dependencies and you need a certain dependency out of that, well, there's always ways to make that more efficient, yeah. right? And so what we're doing is basically allowing you to schedule these things in a way that self-learns outside of the scope of what we're trying to teach it. Yeah. So it will deduce things like the shortest path to a dependency and then learn from it and then make sure that the next time the dependency structures are shorter, mm-hmm. right? It's very similar to some of the stuff that vector DBs are doing to make it closer proximity to mm-hmm. different data and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm getting into the weeds with that. Sorry.
I lied. I do have one more question. In your system, because I know that a lot of systems, the way they're built, they end up having problems when you need to change something.
Oh man,
right?
Yeah.
So you have to end up going and finding the code, and then you have to change the code, mm-hmm. and then sometimes that breaks because the dependencies that existed off that code you didn't consider the way that was going to affect something down the road. So is your systems based on objects, vector systems, right? Mm-hmm. Is it easier to change something, and how does that permutate?
So it's a lot easier in our case because what we've done is, number one, we've made it easy for us to change internally. Yeah. Right? And without getting too far into that, that means that we can do things that are dynamic without breaking constantly. Now, that then gives you the same ability, right? Where if you need to add a field, you just add a field. Don't have to worry about it. It's taken a lot of experience, a lot of pain to get past that to where it's not breaking over time. But we've taken a lot of good pages out of Google's book to be able to accomplish that, right? So
props to them.
Yeah,
they have
absolutely.
Some of their stuff, like being able to have multiple people working on one document at one time and seeing the edits in real time.
They've really done a great job. Man. I think that it's a shame that like Bard and all that isn't better than maybe than it could be, but a lot of the core foundational computation stuff that Google has done, amazing. Protobuffer is one of them, right? And we've kind of used Protobuf in a way that allows us to do some really cool things without without going into that too much. But yeah.
IP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is Nathan Martin, CEO of TetraCore. I thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for sitting down with us. I know that the listeners and the viewers are going to be super excited to hear a lot of this stuff. It is the buzzword of the day, right? Artificial. I guess that's 2 words. It's the buzzwords of the day. But I do appreciate you being here with us.
Hopefully it wasn't too complicated.
No, I think I felt like I understood it, right? And that's not my world. As a lawyer, I don't even know how to do math, they say. So I appreciate you dumbing it down for us a little bit. And this is Beyond Borders with Michael Hendricks. Today, our guest, Nathan Martin from TetraCore. And we look forward to hearing from you again. I think we'll probably bring your partner in sometime soon, Michael Maestas, to talk about some of the practical applications being used in the world, how it can help economy and how it can help scale. So we'll talk about some of that, but I thank you for being here.
Yeah, and let's come back in when we have an autonomous agent to show you.
That's right.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.